Well, good evening, everybody. It's 5 o'clock. It's Friday evening. It is the Rabble Network, and it's the Rangers Rabble live at 5. And obviously on the Rangers Rabble Podcast, part of the TalkSport Fan Network. That's always a mouthful. I am delighted to tell you that I am being joined tonight by Ash. Ash, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. And I think it's my first time doing the show at 5. So, yes, quite excited and looking forward to getting into all things Rangers with the game tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, which is not the best kickoff time, but I guess we are where we are.
Well, while you've mentioned that, what do you think of the kickoff thing? Because that was one of the questions I had for you a bit later down the line. But seeing as you've mentioned it, and Sniper, it's an F, not a D, but it happens all the time, so don't worry about it, mate. So yeah, 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. How does that sit with you as a kickoff time?
Bit of a nonsense, really. I feel like kind of the whole day you're hanging about waiting to go to the football. Is it on TV? Is that why they've moved it to 8 o'clock?
Yeah, I believe it's on Sky.
Aye, yeah. So there you go. As usual, the broadcasters dictate. I mean, I feel for the folk that travel 4 or 5 hours to the game or come over from Northern Ireland. I mean, an 8 o'clock kickoff will be a overnight on a hotel and all kinds of additional costs. It's not too bad for me. I'm about 2 hours from Kilmarnock and I do have a ticket, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, for your average fan, it's a bit of a nightmare.
Yes, it is. For your average fan like me, travelling from Aberdeen, it's a bit of a nightmare. Not so much getting down, but getting home. I mean, you're talking about you'll be home, midnight to Edinburgh? It'll be like a midweek European game for us. You're talking 1:30 in the morning for us. You know what I mean? That's on a Saturday. It's about, particularly this time of year, because it's going to be absolutely Baltic. As we mentioned just before we come on, there's loads of Christmas nights out and things like that just now as well. You know, so I mean, I even know of a member of Rangers staff who normally attends every game who can't go because his wife's got a Christmas night out. And he said, "Don't worry, I'll watch the wee one because our game will get moved, but it'll only get moved to lunchtime Saturday, lunchtime Sunday. Then it hits 8 o'clock on Sunday, so he's already got other commitments. And you know, it's usually an integral part of his job is being at the first team games. But obviously, you know,
yeah. Well, in terms of because obviously you're part of a supporters group. Have you had some people not able to make the game because of the time, or are your guys managed to find a way?
Well, I'm not actually part of a supporters club. I travel with them. So I'm actually going back up the road with them tomorrow. I make my own way down, so I'm going to go to a game in the Ayrshire on my way down. But I do know them very, very well. And I noticed when I got the bus list sent through yesterday, there's not a lot of names on it. Normally, the Granite City bus is full to busting point. Even you know, Monday nights, Wednesdays, whatever. But tomorrow the bus doesn't appear. It's good numbers. Don't get me wrong. It's good numbers for what it is. But no, I think there's a lot of people kind of saying, well, give it a buy. It doesn't help that we're not playing very well. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And obviously there's the ticket thing as well. No, you know, tickets are still, I mean, it's mental. We get a whole stand at Kilmarnock. We used to get 2 stands at Kilmarnock, which still rankles with me. But we get a whole, so we must get, 3,500 tickets or something like that. And there's still a shortage of tickets. You know what I mean? It's on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock, just tells you what support we've got.
Exactly, and as you say, the way we're performing, the fact that the league may be out of reach already, and we didn't have the best result on Wednesday, and the fact that the stand will be a sellout is still pretty impressive. But no, look, it'll be a good game, a good way to banish the memory of the past few weeks, hopefully, and get 3 points on the board.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you caught the manager press conference from today, which is basically the only thing we've got to talk about. Martin was talking, just for everybody watching, Martin was mentioning today and last night that we were going to do a World Cup draw. Watch how long we're not, because the World Cup draw is going to last about 90 minutes. The first half an hour while we're on just now is going to be guys speaking absolute nonsense. I'm watching it just now. There's a guy standing with a microphone in the snow speaking nonsense. There's going to be, I believe there's going to be speeches from Infantino and the Donald as well, all before the draw. So don't worry, folks, if you're watching us, you're not going to miss any of this World Cup draw, because you'd be very lucky to see anything drawn in the next 40 minutes, I would imagine. And bizarrely, I like a draw, any kind of football draw. That's in my wheelhouse. You know, I prefer like a proper, like you do in the Scottish Cup. This team will play this team and it's over in 5 minutes instead of this theatrical stuff. But we'll get on to that. It's encouraging that Danny Rose said that Mikey Moore trained today, and it's a wait and see whether he'll be available for tomorrow. That's where the 8 o'clock kickoff might help us. It gives him that little bit longer to recover if there is any reaction.
Yeah, no, definitely. When I saw that news that Moore would be potentially available, I'm delighted because, as is Sod's Law, he was one of the few that had started to grow into the shirt, I thought, his last few performances. And then, of course, he gets injured. And, we were a bit better on Wednesday in terms of attacking threat. But, the game before that against Falkirk, we could hardly muster an opportunity. And Moore definitely gives you that creativity. So really pleased to see him back involved, although I probably would be surprised if, actually, I see someone, Shona's just mentioned it, I'd be really surprised if they risked him tomorrow because of the plastic pitch. But it's good news that he's back in amongst the squad, and we'll see him sooner rather than later, would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, they're not risking on a plastic pitch is an interesting point because the manager also said that Dujon Sterling isn't available purely because of the plastic pitch. Now, I'm hoping that's because he's just coming back from injury, because if it's one of those he can't play because it's plastic, he's no use to Scottish football because there's 3 plastic pitches in the top flight.
Yeah, and obviously there is, I believe, the intention to get rid of them next season, but I do wonder if that will actually happen. It's been threatened for a long time, and it always seems to get pushed back because clubs apparently can't afford to make that transition. Doesn't speak very well of the Scottish game. I saw Rule was quite, shall we say, negative about the presence of plastic pitches in the Scottish game, talking about the last time he'd coached on one was in an academy. So that doesn't bode well when that gets broadcast around the world on Sky News. But yeah, with Sterling, I think it's just a case of you do not take any risks with a guy whose body has broken down so many times playing for us. I think you have to get him wrapped in cotton wool, and it'll be, you bring him back at a home game when we're 3 or 4-0 up, I say in jest, and he has a good 5-10 minutes to stretch his legs, rather than risk anything tomorrow. I think that'd be foolish.
So the 3 or 4-0 up thing, that's a good segue to why haven't we seen Curtis and Cameron, and will we see them tomorrow?
Good question. I do you know what? Totally off the wall. I would be really tempted to play Finlay Curtis through the middle tomorrow. I really would. I'd play Bajrami in behind, and I'd play Gassama on the left, back in his natural position, and then you could find someone to take the right spot if you needed to. I just feel like he's one of the few people at the club who can finish. He's finished at every level that he's played at. Champions League qualifiers, even in the SPFL this season. Why not give him a chance? Because if one thing was highlighted on Wednesday is that even when we can actually create some chances, we have absolutely nobody up top that you can rely on to put the ball in the back of the net. We just don't.
Okay, then answer Paul's question. Do we play one striker or two, or do we not play any of the 3 strikers we've got? And do we go with, for example, Mikey Moore in the middle if we want to risk him on that pitch?
See, like I say, I think the person, Danilo in behind Majowski hasn't really worked this season. Chermiti, we already have made our mind up about him. I don't see the value in putting him in tomorrow. I would mix it up and do something completely different, because if you had somebody on the pitch on Wednesday that was even half competent at finishing, that game would have been out of sight. We would have comfortably won that. As I mentioned, I agree with Jackson. I would give him the opportunity because realistically, he's not going to do any worse than what we've seen from the other 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, from my little knowledge of Finlay Curtis in the youth ranks, I don't think he was ever a striker. He always sort of came in from the wide or from the number 10. So I don't know whether he was actually playing, down the middle as the striker. So I mean, it's not the wildest shout I've ever heard, because, as you rightly say, Ash, there's absolutely, we get nothing off the striker. But the problem with Finlay Curtis is if we are throwing crosses in, he's not the biggest, and it'll be the land of the Giants in behind the Kilmarnock's defence. I mean, they've got an awful lot of big defenders.
Yeah, and that's usually meeting water to SPFL defenders when you're launching the ball in the box. But I just think that Finlay Curtis is clinical. He's clinical. We saw that against St Mirren. He was on the pitch for not a particularly long time. Takes a shot from the edge of the box and gets us the draw. So I just think that he offers something completely different. Defenders don't know too much about him because we've not really seen too much of him. He's not been given an opportunity this season. So yeah, I mean, it's a bit off the wall, but I just don't know if I can sit through 90 minutes of Chermiti, Danilo or Majowski again, because it is becoming ever more painful, in my opinion.
Yes, it is. I mean, it really is. So we're not playing any of the 3 of them. Are you starting the captain? Because he was absolutely woeful on Wednesday night. So does James Tavernier get straight back into the team?
Well, your alternative really at the moment is Aarons. And I know he wins us the penalty, but I think we've seen enough from him to question whether he's cut out to go away to Kilmarnock and dig in and get give the performance that we need. So I probably would stick with Tav, but it's more a reflection of there's no one behind him versus that he deserves to start after a really difficult few games.
So, and you starting at right back, you wouldn't, for example, take Giga out and stick Tav in beside Fernandez and maybe put Aarons at right back?
Oh, it's really, this is where it gets really difficult, because you look around, defensively in particular, we're a mess, and there's not really many of that back four. Maybe Magoma, who's obviously come onto a bit of a game that you would hang your hat on. I mean, I just think Tag gives you that little bit of experience, and I know that's really weak in terms of a reason to pick him, but I would leave him out wide. Giga and Fernandez, you know what you're going to get from them. Suter being back, I think potentially in the next couple of weeks is big for us. I have been very critical of John Suter, but when you see him out of the team for a few weeks and you see what the alternative is, then he'll be a welcome addition when he's ready. We've really just got to get through the next few weeks until we get some of these players back. Yeah,
when there's Andrew saying he's got a strange feeling we'll go with the same start lineup, I'm assuming it's a Wednesday night, which again will raise that his rule already got his favourites. I don't think it'd be a case of he's got his favourites. He just has very little to choose from, as you just touched on. I mean, what he's been left with is a really poor squad, and because of the injuries, it's an even poorer squad because some of the better players in inverted commas are currently injured.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Rule is in a really, really difficult position, and he is. You look at his win record since he's come in domestically in the league, it's much, much better than what we've had. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. But I do think that sometimes, in game, he doesn't make the best decisions. I think it was Lewis in the chat the other night was highlighting that he left it too long to make a change on Wednesday. There was an opportunity to introduce the likes of Finlay Curtis or Lyle Cameron off the bench, and he didn't take it. Neither of those guys got any minutes. So it is really hard to judge Rule, but I mean, Danilo in behind Majowski just didn't work. And I think he's got to mix it up on Saturday, because we actually created a lot of opportunities, and it was hugely frustrating to see. I think our expected goals was above 4. Now, I'm not massively into stats, but I believe that's the highest it's been for most of the season. And when you look the highlights back, we had some great opportunities, but just nobody that was able to finish them off. And we were just not good enough to miss that many chances.
Yeah, I'm not big into stats either, but I believe the way that XG works, our opening goal, because it came from about 35 yards out, it's very, very low XG, so that's not even really, not even really part of that. So that just tells you how many good chances we made and we couldn't take because we haven't got any strikers that are in form or doing anything. But I mean, having said that,
sorry, Wilf, just to ask you that question while you're saying that, do you think it's they're off form? Do you think it's just they lack quality, or do you think it's confidence? Because you look at Majowski, I mean, he could finish. I know that the goals he scored at Aberdeen were different in nature in terms of running in behind, but he was clinical, and yet you see some of the misses he's had for us this season. What's going on there?
I think it's confidence and belief. It's the old saying, the jersey's too heavy. I just think the jersey's too heavy. Well, I mean, I don't want to single him out. I just don't think Chermiti is the player we were told he was, because I don't rate him at all. I hope I'm proved wrong, but I don't rate him at all. Danilo's proved he can score goals for us, but he's not really doing it. And as you say, Majowski was on fire for Aberdeen. He scored goals for fun for Aberdeen. Yes, there were different goals that were on the shoulder of the defender, balls over the top, which you can't do playing for us, because obviously teams don't come that far out. That we can do that. I just think it's confidence, and it also seems to me there's been games recently where I think there's a lack of confidence in each other, because there's been times when, particularly, there was a couple of times. In the last European game where Gassama ran into the box, looked up and went, "That's one of my strikers. I'm just hitting this myself." Because and the one that really sticks out to me was when the ball was running out the edge of the box to Conor Barron, who never shoots, never scores, and Danilo just swung a leg at it, put it into the Copeland stand, because obviously he thinks, well, he's not going to hit this. He's not got that ability. That's confidence in your teammates. I don't think they trust each other.
No, and I think that that's absolutely right, and that's one thing I would say about when we talk about Mikey Moore coming back into the team in terms of confidence. He's one of the few that I think haven't the jersey hasn't been too heavy for him. You know, I think he's taken the responsibility of being a Rangers player on, and he kind of relishes it. When you hear him talk about how disappointed he was with his early form and how he was itching to put it right and to prove to the fans he was good enough to play. So I think having someone like him in your team will just build a little bit of confidence. You know, he's gallus, he'll take people on, he's not scared of the occasion, and hopefully that'll start to rub off on other players, because, yeah, if it's a lack of quality, we're in big trouble, because you can't really fix that.
Yeah, I mean, Bojangles saying there the whole team is low in confidence in each other. That's more succinct way of saying what I kind of dragged out there. It does appear that they don't have confidence in each other. Although it was nice to see on Wednesday night when Chermiti missed that header with a couple of minutes to go, that Fernandes absolutely tore a strip off him. Just, I mean, absolutely left him without a name. It's nice to see players doing that, because we're too nice at times. In fact, we're too nice all the time.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't miss up that opportunity in that moment. You have to put the ball in the back of the net, and that was just a kind of genuine reaction of, how have you managed to miss that? And you're right, there's times when players make mistakes and the hands go up in the air and the shoulders get shrugged. I want to see somebody grabbing someone and saying, you go there, you do your job, because if not, you're going to cost us. And that's maybe a criticism you could level at the likes of Tav. He's maybe not that type of captain. But we've always had a few bad men, bad boys, shall we say, in our squad, who've held people accountable in the past, and I don't think it does any harm, to be honest. Yeah,
I mean, that to me, I've said it consistently. I think that's the problem with the players that we signed in the summer. There's too many kids, too many young inexperienced, not even kids, because I mean, a lot of them are 22, 23-year-old, but they've got no experience. They don't have the experience and ability to drag their mates. They're not sort of guys you'd want with you in the trenches if a war broke out.
No, and I'm conscious I don't want to dig people out, but that kind of really was evident to me when Tello Asgard was being interviewed after he scored the goal against Dundee United at home, I think it was, and it was an absolute worldie, and it was in the lead up to the next European game, and he was being asked about it, and he was sort of really positive about his goal and really positive about his performance, and I just thought, we drew the game 2-2. We didn't win that game. That was another missed opportunity on a weekend where we could have closed the gap up against the leaders. And I just thought, for me in that squad, there's a little bit too much of focus on my own performance and my own stats and how I come across individually, and maybe a little bit less focus on how are we performing as a team. And maybe that's unfair, but that's definitely, I came away from that thinking that doesn't really sit right with me in terms of team spirit and, changing our kind of fortunes as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, it was nice. I mean, I heard Jaden McGowan's interview today as well. He was a press conference today. They said, "What about your goal? Worldly first goal you've ever scored? Yeah, but we didn't win." Is effectively what he said. That was really nice to hear from an 18-year-old kid. Just to pick up on your point now. I mean, the fact that he says, "Yeah, great for me, but we didn't win the game, and it's all about winning the game, and that's what we have to do here."
And probably quite telling as well, Wilf, that I think he's the under-20 or under-21s captain for England. So there you go. There's a leader. There's a guy who is comfortable in that position, despite the fact he's a kid. Gets what it's about to represent your club, to represent your country. And yeah, if we had a living like him, we'd maybe not be in the position. Not to say that he's been fantastic, but again, he's never been one that shirked away from the responsibility. And even taking that shot on was pretty impressive. And what a finish.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the thing that gets me was a tremendous finish from him, but it came from a ricochet from a shot by Conor Barron, who, as I said minutes ago, never shoots. I couldn't believe I saw Conor Barron lining a shot up. I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then ricochet came back, and as I said to you, I was at the game with Demi, and I said, if that net hadn't been there, that ball was going to land in her front room. We hit it that hard.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, the side netting. I love when you see a replay and a ball hits the side net. There's no saving that. So yeah, hopefully he'll chip in with it. He actually had a chance to score again late on. From memory, a keeper makes a good save at the back post. So look, if he can add a few goals to his game and a few assists, then we'll have a decent player for the rest of the season. Yes,
we will. And we'll touch more on the game tomorrow. I find it strange tomorrow because it's so late in the day. Thinking tomorrow night, it's 7 o'clock for the members, because obviously I'm back on host. I'm doing a wee double shift, so Martin will get the overtime bill for that. So we'll touch more on that. So something else I found out today, Ash, that absolutely took me by surprise. I heard it on another podcast earlier that yesterday was the Finnish end of year Christmas party, if you like, and the Finnish Football Association announced their Player of the Year.
Let me guess, a certain Mr. Ant-Man?
A certain Mr. Ant-Man. I was gobsmacked. I have to say, I was gobsmacked.
I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. We seem to have an incredible knack of taking players who have been good elsewhere and then bringing them into the club and bringing them down to the level of other players that aren't performing. I mean, I suppose the question I have about Ant-Man, and I don't pretend to be a Dutch football expert, but, was his season at Go Eagles, was that the outlier? Was that a freak season where everything comes together, everything drops nicely for you, and you just have a complete, outlier, and you kind of go back to the norm the next season? Or is it a case of, because when he came in, he was flying, Wilf. That's the thing. His first game, I thought, oh my, we've got an absolute star here, and we've not even seen 10% of that in the game since. And now he's injured for 2 months, which again is so typically Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, his first game he came in, and then within 24 hours of getting here, he played in a European game. I think it was Pilsen at Ibrox, I think, if I remember right. And he was absolutely brilliant. And then Russell Martin got his hands on him. We've not seen the same player since. And I think JD makes a good point. Right now, we seem to be talent strippers FC, because we're bringing in players, and as we both said earlier, we're not big on stats, but whose stats are fantastic. I mean, Ant-Man was the leading assist provider last season in the Eredivisie. Comes over here, hasn't done anything. I mean, we get players like that all the time, and I don't know what it is. It can't be that the jersey can't be too heavy for all of them. It just simply can't be. I mean, I don't like to quote the previous incumbent, but Russell Martin said, look, all these players have got talent. They have to have talent to be here, but they have to have something special to stay here. I'm just wondering if a lot of these players don't have that something special.
But then I suppose I think about the likes of Raskin and how he performs for Belgium, Asgard for Norway, Bajrami for Albania. All of these guys are, Bajrami's, the reason I think he's so fired up is he's got the opportunity to help Albania potentially get to the World Cup if they come through the qualifiers. So these guys can go away at international level against arguably, stronger opposition and play well and be well thought of by their international associations. And then they come back to Rangers and they just, I don't know whether, I think maybe you're right, Wilf. I think maybe the jersey is just too big. And I also think as well, I think, apologies, I saw it in the chat, maybe Jackson making the point that actually, Ant-Man came in, had a really difficult start with Russell Martin in terms of, maybe being overcoached, and now his confidence potentially is completely gone. So maybe that's what it is more than anything, is we get these guys in, we fill them with negativity, and then it's really difficult to turn that around, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense how these guys can perform elsewhere, leave Rangers, go on and have good careers, but when they're with us, they don't show anything.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's absolutely wild. Because we have brought in decent players, and the ones that we've heard of are decent players. I mean, the one that's really surprised me, and it's nice to hear again, the manager talking about today was Bajrami. He said that, he's come in and he's listened to what I've said to him, and he's actually acted on it. And we need players to do that. It does sound me, because he certainly made him into a better player. It would appear, certainly more attacking player. And he's been a standout the last couple of times he's been on the park. But to hear the manager say, look, he's come in, we've told him stuff, he's taken it on board. We need everybody to be doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, that really should be a demonstration to the rest of the squad. I mean, the likes of Lyle Cameron, who isn't really getting a look in at the moment, but, Bajrami wasn't even making matchday squads for a long time. He goes away on international duty. His international manager makes it, quite clear he's not happy. Bajrami's not happy. And rather than him come back and spit the dummy out, he's actually gone in, listened to what he's been told to do, and gone out and performed. So, if that doesn't motivate other players who aren't getting the opportunity now to do their best to try and get into the matchday squad, I don't know what will. But, it's almost a wee bit sad though, Wilf, that we're praising a guy who's getting paid a significant sum of money a week to just turn up and do his best at his job. But the reality is there's probably a lot of players in that squad that have been phoning it in this season. And it's quite evident when you look at the lack of effort sometimes on match days. So, yeah, if we could have more Bajrami attitudes, that would be great. And we probably would be in a better position than we're in now.
Yeah, it's the not working bit that gets me. I mean, I've said it consistently on the pods. There's no excuse for not working hard. I mean, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. We've got talent, but it has to work hard. It really, if we get beat by a team that's better than us, but we've worked really hard, you've got to accept that. Or if it's one of those days where you just can't score, and they happen, you've got to accept that. But for teams to, I mean, you go back to some games and you look and you say, hold on, did they I mean, that Falkirk game last week, it looked at times they had 2 or 3 more players on the park than us because they just wanted it more. There's absolutely no excuse for that.
No, and that's an attitude thing, that's an application thing. And you look at our position in the league, we don't have the fourth, fifth best squad in Scotland. That's in terms of quality, that's a nonsense. But we've got a group of guys that maybe aren't as working as hard for each other as they should be. And until they get the basics right, then we're going to get dragged into battles. That's the Scottish game. Tomorrow night at Rugby Park, it will be a battle. It'll be about winning second balls. It'll be about not being bullied by the opposition. And it's just whether or not you've got 11 players that can stand up to that, or who wilt under that kind of pressure. And too often this season, we've wilted.
Yeah, I mean, for me, tomorrow's the same as Wednesday was, and unfortunately it didn't happen. We have to score first, and then we have to follow up with another goal, because it's not getting the second goal that's consistently costing us. It's not going 2 goals ahead, because if we score against Kilmarnock, to me their game plan doesn't change. They'll still just sit in, because they know we'll give them chances. I mean, Alan Brown said to me at Ibrox last weekend, because he sits in front of me, "Look, Falkirk are sitting in because they know we'll give them chances, because that's what we do. So if we don't score first and we're giving teams chances, that's why we're not winning games."
Yeah, and the reality is they can sit in, because, up until Wednesday, we haven't really shown much, bite in attack. We've been really poor. Everything's been slow, everything's been passive, everything's been predictable. So teams just sit in and know that a ball over the top 9 times out of 10 is going to create an opportunity, because we get caught too far up the pitch, people out of position, and then make really poor decisions about bringing people down 30 yards from goal rather than letting them walk into the box and score. So, yeah, Kilmarnock won't come out to play us tomorrow. They'll let us have the ball, and then they'll try and pick their moment. So it's really, really important that we continue that kind of attacking threat that we had on Wednesday, because if we do that and we have someone that's able to finish, then we should win tomorrow night. But if we have a performance like we've had in the league, sort of against Falkirk on Sunday, then it's going to be an absolute slog, and we'll be lucky to get away with a draw.
Yes, we will. So we'll leave tomorrow there. Just the last couple of minutes before we go, because the World Cup draw is still going on apace. They haven't actually drawn a ball out yet.
Of course not.
So we'll. They're waiting for us to finish this with it. As you say, I phoned Infantino earlier, and give us till at least past, and then we'll sort it out from there. And to answer Paul's question, Martin said we were going to cover the World Cup draw till he heard it was going on for 90 minutes, and then he went, "Sack that. We're not doing that, because we're back on again at 7." So we're not actually going to cover it. So I'm actually glad you lot are in here, listening to us while all this nonsense is going on. We'll leave Robbie Williams just finished speaking, and there's other people who I don't even know who they are.
Will you touch on it at 7, Wilf? Will you chat about it at 7? Because by then Scotland will know who they've got, I guess. Yeah,
by 7, at 7 during the hour between 7 and 8, we will talk about who Scotland have got. I've got absolutely no interest in international football, right. And it's not because I don't want Scotland to win, because I always want Scotland to win in my country. I just don't have an association with international football, because that's what I was going to ask you before we go. What's your relationship like with A, international football, and B, the Scotland national team?
So my relationship with the Scottish national team probably has waned in terms of its intensity over the years. No doubt about it, when we stopped seeing Rangers representation in the squad, and obviously, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but 2012 and the way that we were treated by, the governing bodies, it did leave a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. I love my country. I love seeing Scotland do well, but there's a bit more pride when you see a Rangers player in and around the Scotland squad. I pay a bit more attention than I would normally. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of, my view on it is I'm delighted we're at the World Cup. I will support the squad. I hope to see a few Rangers in there, like Sir Conor Barron, John Souttar. Great opportunity for them to go away and represent the club and have a good World Cup. And obviously, I'll be watching that anyway, because you've got the likes of Raskin and a few other people that will be in there, hopefully, and adding a few million onto their valuation. So, no, I get why some people don't particularly enjoy watching Scotland, given all that's happened. But yeah, I will always support my country.
I'll always support my country, but I'll never go to see them again. Is my I fell out of love with international football long before the 2012 stuff happened. I used to go and watch Scotland regularly. I haven't been to see Scotland in probably 30 years.
Right.
Because I'm one of these people, I can't leave my club loyalties at the door. I found myself celebrating an Aberdeen player scoring the winner against Argentina, and I felt dirty. I went, hold on, I don't like Stuart McKimmie. He's just scored against Argentina. I can't do this. I just can't. To me, if you're going to follow the international team, you have to be able to leave your club loyalty at the door. I can't do that. I can't. For example, had I been at Scotland, England when a Celtic player scored two two rats being like, I couldn't celebrate them. Well, so what's the point of me being there? You know what I mean? What's the point?
That's funny because I've had a moment like that where I'm sure McManus scored for Scotland, and you sort of cheer, then you're like, oh, it's so strange to be celebrating when he's happy. Like there is that moment of hesitation. But I a bit like you, would probably draw the line at Lee Griffiths. I feel like, yeah, I can't remember, but I wasn't at the game, obviously. I think there are certain people that transcend that kind of country loyalty, and Lee Griffiths is probably somebody worthy of that. So I totally understand that viewpoint.
I mean, I will watch international football if it's on, and if it's on, I will watch the Scotland game if I've got access to it. But if they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. I really don't care. It doesn't put me up nor down. I just like to see my players from my team, if they're on international duty, whichever country they're playing for, play well and come back uninjured. And that's all I really want from international football.
It's one of these questions that we actually talked about on the Rabble Reports, Stuart and I, that, you know, if you could choose your club to win the Champions League or your country to win the World Cup, what would you do? And yeah, I think that's an interesting debate over a glass of lemonade in the pub one night. Because at different times of my life, it's probably been different answers, but I probably would say it's the Champions League. But
mine's would be the Champions League every day of every week. Mine would be the Champions League.
Yeah, I think you'll be. I think in the chat, you'll be the common answer there, definitely, Wilf.
I mean, it's not even just internationally. I mean, I had the fortune a couple of seasons ago. I was at Union Berlin against Ajax in the Europa League. It was Union Berlin's biggest game at the time because they'd never ever got that far in Europe.
Right.
And the second goal just before half time, and I really Union Berlin end because I quite like Union with the scarf on, Rangers top one, Union scarf. I celebrated the first goal like a madman. Second goal went in, and it was the boy Juranovic who used to play with Celtic that scored it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I never moved. And it was just before half time. And at half time, I turned around to the people around the book me and I went, I need to explain something. And they went, you're a Rangers fan. He used to play with Celtic. We understand. Because they're German football fans. They understood the situation. So I couldn't even celebrate that because he used to play with them. It's just me. I am that bitter. You know what I mean?
No, I respect that. I love that pettiness. It's fantastic. And I totally get it because, like I say, sometimes you do cheer and you think, oh, that feels a little bit wrong, but I'm just going to try and forget about it.
Yeah, so that's my big thing. I just can't leave my club loyalties at the door. So I know plenty of people that can. I've got lots and lots of good friends that are Rangers fans. They go to watch Scotland, the more power to them. You know what I mean? More power to them. I just can't do it. You know what I mean? I've also got my own feelings about a majority of the Tartan Army, but we won't go there.
I was going to say, I think you and I, from what you've said, might agree on that particular point, but I try to support the squad rather than some of the people that follow the squad, is what I would say.
Yes, absolutely. And on that note, Martin has just put in the chat, he's trying to organise a show for later tonight, bringing you a reaction to the World Cup draw. Might be difficult to do on a Friday night, just this close to Christmas, but you never know. But anyway, Ash, enjoy your trip to Kilmarnock tomorrow. I'll hopefully bump into you because I'll certainly be down there as well, because it won't surprise anybody here that I'm going to the game tomorrow.
No, I just assumed that I would find you there, so they'll hopefully catch up and say hello. And thank you for having me, and thanks for everyone for getting involved in the chat. And I see we've been Trump's on stage now, so that might be a good time to exit stage.
Yes, indeed. Yep, Trump's on stage now, so I think there may be a way to start drawing balls out or doing whatever it is they do for these draws. I've got a very strange looking trophy that can't possibly be a new World Cup trophy, because it would appear, and I'm not listening to this, it would appear that they've given Mr. Trump a medal and a trophy because his country are one of the co-hosts. I don't really get it, but it wouldn't be like the Donald to make it all about him, would it?
No, and that's just FIFA all over. But you're right, we could be here for another hour talking about that, so we probably should end it there before we get in trouble.
Yes, we will. So for the members, we're back again at 7 o'clock. It's me, and I've got no idea who else. I'll find out when I log in, I guess. So Ash, always a pleasure. Thanks very much. Hopefully see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Take care, folks.
See you later, folks. Enjoy the rest of this draw when it eventually starts.